Well, hello, it's Jeffrey Shaw broadcasting from Radio FM 80 Australia, right here in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. At this time of the night, it's 7 o'clock, but if you look above us, so we've got the people from the Northern Hemisphere. It's currently 9 o'clock in the morning for those people in West Country, Somerset. And for our friends over the ditch, it's just gone past 10 o'clock in New Zealand. To our one and only listener in South Australia, 7:30. Anyway, so without further ado, I'll pass you over to Andrena, and then she can introduce you to Steve. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good day, and wherever you are listening to the replay, welcome. And today, I'm privileged to have the lovely Steve Lee from Glastonbury, who runs Radio FM 432 radio station. And I'm just going to hand it over to you, Steve, because I know you do so much for the community. You've got so much to share about Glastonbury. Just so much magic. So I know communication started off in an early age for you. So I'd love you to start sharing your journey of how it all started, what led you on this path.
Probably a failed school. Hello, everybody. Hello, Radio FM 88 Australia, and welcome for everybody that's tuned in. I was a bit of a failure at school, really. I went to a grammar school where everybody did quite well, and I lagged behind. I found it very boring, and I couldn't seem to fit in. And I thought, well, it was in Birmingham, of all, sort of industrial area. And everybody was going to work in the car factories and things. And I thought, that's just not going to be me. And I ended up joining the Royal Navy and eventually went into the submarine service, into Nuclear Submarines, where I was in charge of a communications office eventually. So, that's sort of where it came from, really. So I trained in communications. Seemed to have mercury for some reason a lot in my astrological chart. It seems to be there a lot, and so that sort of makes sense. And that's sort of where it stemmed from. And I did 11 years there. I didn't really touch radio till much, much later. Music's a big thing for me. I love music. It doesn't really matter what genres. But I did discover a new music and a bit of rave music in the mid-90s when I was working in banks. And I sort of went down the DJ route there. I wanted to learn to mix dance music, and I learned that. And it was just a wonderful thing to do. It's sort of this undercurrent, this spine of communication in wherever the form, in its vibration, has always been there from those early days. And it's just I think, was it Einstein said energy doesn't die, it just changes format. Mm-hmm. And I just felt that's what that journey was all about. It's just changing the format of energy and communication and vibration. And you have to go through, to sort of find out who you are. I think you have to go through that dark night of the soul in many ways. You go through traumas. I think we're all sort of come from a traumaed childhood, whether we think it or not. I had a wonderful childhood, but somewhere along the line, I might have had a teacher wrap my knuckles or whatever, and that would be classed as a trauma, and that could be associated to the bell going, and then that bell is associated to something else, and then so you got to dig deep in your own soul and learn about your own journey and what brought you to make those decisions and why you're where you're at that moment of time, because it's nobody else's responsibility, it's just yours. And I think once you take that responsibility, you can then go on your own little journey somewhere else, and sort of, you're not taking charge, you're just going with the flow of that particular energy, but you're far more aware of your environment and who you are and how you fit in it. And I think that's important. So after that, many years later, I'd gone out of that and into banking and insurance companies and things in IT. So again, IT is a form of, communication in one form or another, and then from that, once I decided that that world, the corporate world and and everything behind me was just not fitting into who I felt I was. I had to let it all go. And that's the big transformation. I think it was Joseph Campbell's book of a journey of a hero's journey, a book of 1,000 faces. We're 1,000 faces to 1,000 people. We're 1,000 personalities to 1,000 people. Somebody might see me on the street and say, "Oh, it's that trance DJ, fantastic." Somebody else might see me and say, "Oh, it's that guy we always have a cup of coffee with, and he's always at the Abbey or whatever." He's a tour guide, or So you've got all these facets about yourself that are out there, for all these different people. It's probably led me to here. I don't know. So that journey took me to Glastonbury eventually. I came to Glastonbury in 2011, and I volunteered to go to FM radio. And I thought it sort of brought back that promise back to from 2012, and say, "Oh, right, okay, I can maybe achieve something with radio, even if I can't do my own radio thing. I can at least learn." I did learn at Hospital Radio in back in Chelmsford when I lived there, which was the birthplace of Marconi set up his radio stuff there. Ironically, I didn't know that at the time. So there's these connections that just come into your world, and if you don't see the signs, you can't act upon them, And in those days, I was a little bit more unconscious, so I didn't see those signs, yet. Unconsciously, I was getting there. So a bit weird, really. I went the long route rather than the short route. So so that led me to Glastonbury, and I've been here ever since. Roughly 2011, 2012. Bit of a blur, really. So I've been here around about 10 years. And I got to learn about Glastonbury. So one of the first things I did was set myself up as a tour guide. I went off to work for 3 months at some famous caves around here to be a tour guide, so I could learn the skills and then do my own thing, because I'm terrible in front of a crowd, really. I'm not like some of your previous guests. You've had some wonderful guests on who are very good, in a presentation live setting. I get a little bit too nervous. I'd rather sit in the front row with a little microphone and somebody saying, "Where's that noise coming from?" That's how I prefer it, I think.
A bit late now.
It is a bit late now, yeah. Well, I think now we all got to be stand up and be counted.
That's right. We've got to be seen. We've got to be a voice for others, and we've got to lead the way forward. We've got to create a new dream.
Yeah, and and I think all your experiences bring you to the place where we are in the present moment, and with that, you've got to realise that actually every individual counts, and it's up to every individual to see their environment and to see what's around them and just do their thing, just do your own individual journey. If your collective is your family, do it with your family or whatever. But at the end of the day, the sole responsibility is you. It's the self. That's it, really. How's that so far? By the way, when I did join Glastonbury FM, they've been great to me, and I had a wonderful show there that developed over a period of time, and I was getting 4 guests a week. The show was weekly, go live for 2 hours. Get 4 or 5 guests a week, no problem at all, and some wonderful presenters. And I have to thank Positive Living Group, who's a wonderful group as well, through Dave and Samia there. And I think you've had Breakman on, haven't you? Yeah, wonderful, fantastic. Yeah, he's a good mate of mine, and he's really on the mark, so he's really good. And we all connected, and so I thought, well, I had this format, and I thought, well, I'll go with this format and see if that works, and it worked really well, and it sort of grew. And then I realized it's like you're always developing yourself, you're always aware of things going on around you. So I could see that maybe that particular radio station was going in a path that I felt wasn't really me in that sense. So I decided then to create my own, which is what I've done. So it's an internet radio station, but it works. It's already got a big footprint called Glastonbury Radio 432.com, and just put that plug out there. And it's the footprints out there already. So Canada, USA, Russia, Germany. In particular, they all seem to listen in, 24/7, and I'm really grateful for that. It's fantastic because I've not launched it yet, and I'm sort of going to use the Frost Fair for a sort of partial launch in many ways, and do it from there.
Yeah, because that's this month, isn't it? Is it?
It's this month. Yeah, I think it's on the 27th or something like that. Yeah.
Did you say you started from a porta cabin?
It did. Well, it didn't. I joined GFM about 2012, I think it was, and they were working in a porta cabin then, but they'd been in like a rugby club or something before that, and so it started there. But and some wonderful people got on and managed to get a place in the rugby building and get a proper studio sorted out. It was fantastic. Felt spoiled.
We got a bit of competition with the frogs.
We got the frogs, haven't we? I know. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that's like energy coming in and saying, "Oh, we're with you. We're with you."
Yeah.
We've
got a voice as well.
Yeah, they're all shouting my name in the background. That's what it is.
Well, frogs supposed to be baritones, and their job is actually transmute heavy dark energy.
That's what? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
They're actually baritones, and their job is to transmute dense dark energy.
Oh, is it? Right. Well, maybe I've got some of that around me. I don't think so. I hope not.
No,
if it's there, I wouldn't even notice it. So we don't buy into that, do we?
No,
we try not
definitely
to.
Not.
Yeah, you can get sucked in at Glastonbury, I must admit, and I have done a few times, and after you put yourself in check and go, okay, look, let's climb out of that place in that playground and go over to this playground and get back to where I was, so that happens. Yeah, but that's human nature. It's just human nature. Sometimes, you've got to try and be as present as you can and not worry about the past or future, because none of it exists. It's only the now. And Eckhart Tolle put that very well with his wonderful books and his wonderful talks. So, being in the now.
That's the most important thing of all, isn't it, at the moment? Whatever's happened in the past is gone. We can't change it. We can only learn and grow from it. And, we can put out what we'd like to manifest. But at the moment, the most important is this moment now is all that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the time.
Just stop there.
Right.
Eckhart Tolle started his whole career in the miracle rooms in Glastonbury.
Oh yeah. Well, I wasn't quite sure. I didn't know that, but that's a wonderful fact. So thank you.
Yeah, because he was with our mate Willem, and they're both sort of in that lifestyle, and they were staying at Elaine Thompson's B&B, and
right.
Yeah, which is top of Windmill Hill.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I know Windmill Hill.
That's where I lived when I landed in Glastonbury. I was at the top there.
Strangely enough, so did I. Yeah. Windmill Hill, really, its real name should be St Edmunds, because that's where the king used to sit up there. And, he wanted to go up there and have a look occasionally when he came down to visit Glastonbury. For some reason, that was that's the place he liked to be occasionally. Written somewhere.
So, I'm aware of that. It's 11/11 today, which is a very important day on many levels. Especially as this is my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you.
Happy birthday! What a great day to do it. Well, the Earth must have changed when you came in.
You were saying about the 1 minute silence and how it started in 1940, was it?
Yeah. So Tudor Pole
share that.
Wesley Tudor Pole, who created the Chalice Well Gardens, this beautiful place for contemplation, where the white and the red springs sort of come together. Really, even though the white spring's just over the wall, it's really the red there, and it's it's wonderful place. Really solid. And Tudor Pole in the Second World War created the silent minute from Chalice Well. So everything that's gone out, so everybody's aware of the 1 minute silence. It was carried on by the government and the BBC back in 1940. So from that place has come the 1 minute silence. So Glastonbury can be proud of that as well, can't it? Yeah. And I think I think the 1 minute silence was meant to represent. I think every second was meant to represent a death. I don't want to call it a sacrifice. That's but I would say it was people that went out and fought for their freedoms, really, and for their families and for their loved ones. So those that were lost during that time, that minute has become a very profound statement. But interesting. See it in many ways. So thanks to Wesley Tudor Pole, he helped create that. And the Chalice Well, of course, you can go to every day and see the place. Yeah, well done for spotting that one out. Thanks, Jeff. Glad I got that right. Those frogs are amazing.
Well, we had a bit of rain there yesterday, and then again we had a big storm earlier this morning, and then we had one this afternoon. So they've come out.
Right. Okay. So it brings them all out. So it rains frogs there.
Yeah.
Just need a few snakes to get them there.
I think we're talking about the Phoenicians there, aren't you?
Yeah.
All we need now is Moses to part the water and.
Part the frogs. Yeah, great stuff. So and when I first came to Glastonbury, I wasn't too sure what to do. I sort of landed, sort of feet on. I wasn't even sure my feet were on the ground, to be honest. I wasn't quite sure what I was doing there. A friend of mine persuaded me. God bless his soul, he's not with us now. Sort of persuaded me to come down. He felt I would like it. But I didn't have any previous connections except for going to the festival for 3 or 4 years before that and doing a little bit of DJing on the John Peel stage in between bands. It was nothing. It was just background music, really. But, it got... Yeah, I got 5 years out of that, and met Bruce Springsteen of all people. Sort of about to drop a name. I wasn't too sure who it was at the time. It was a bit embarrassing. There you go.
Well, I think it's better if you don't know who people are, and then there's no airs and graces, is it? Because they're a celebrity or whatever.
Yeah, I've never looked at things like that. I wouldn't go for autographs or anything like that. I've never been that. So, it wouldn't matter who was there. They're people at the end of the day. I can't put them on a pedestal or in sort of iconic, in some sort of icon. It's the eye. It cons. You have to be careful. You have to be careful who you're dealing with. So the idea is treat everybody the same. Hopefully.
You talk of autographs, and I just have to share that. In my younger days, which weren't that far away, I used to go on a program called Discs A Go Go.
Oh right, okay.
And it was on the on HTV, and we used to go to Top Rank on a Saturday night, and then we'd all be bopping away, and then they'd give you tickets to go on the show on Monday, and we'd have a bus that would drive from the city centre to the studios, not far away, about half an hour. And then, I saw, oh my God, Sonny and Cher, Manfred Mann, Jerry and the Pacemakers. And I got so many autographs somewhere in my storage bits. But But yeah, so in my younger days, I used to get the autographs, and I thought at the end of the day, they're all stuck in a book anyway. Like,
Oh. Yeah, they're all on page. That's all right. I mean,
we used to have in the middle of they'd stop the rehearsing, and we'd all have a hot dog and a can of Coke.
Hot dog and a can of Coke. That's living the dream as well, isn't it? Yeah.
God, isn't it? Oh my God. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
all good. That's all right. Advertising's welcome.
Yeah, I forgot. I shouldn't have said that one. I should have said some fizzy.
Yeah.
Or some
Something in the background there. No, it's all right. It's all good.
So you do a lot for community, don't you? You know, an awful lot.
Well, I feel I don't. You know, what it was, I think, if anything, is when I created the radio show, I realised that, you know, many radio stations try and, I don't know, they don't reflect their community. They try and go to something else, some other narrative to make the community think about moving to that. You know, well, I didn't want that. I wanted the opposite. So I wanted to reflect what the community is right at that minute, you know, week by week. So I would have guests on that reflected that. So those communications would always come through. And if there was anything interesting to say in between the records, I would try and get it out there, because I'd find it just interesting, you know, for other people to discuss or to go and research or whatever. So I used to do a bit of that. And I think, you know, turning up at, you know, certain events and things, just, and your name being a voice being a name, you don't realise, you know, people come up and shake your hand, and you're not quite sure, you know, do I know you? You know, and it sort of stems from there, really, and yeah, it's just you realise that, you know, from a frequency, from a community point of view, there's a lot of people there. 10,000 inhabitants at Glastonbury. You're not going to possibly meet all of them, but there are little groups of people you come across quite regularly, you know. So, and they all seem to be quite like-minded people and raise themselves to whatever. I don't know. I always think I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, to be honest with you. You know, I always think that. You know, there's some amazingly talented people in Glastonbury, which really. That's what spurred me and sort of inspired me to create the radio station, because I thought this local talent needs a global audience. You know, I thought that's what they need, and if this is the media to do it, and then that's what I'll have to do. And I couldn't afford to go FM, to be honest, you know, locally, because it's an FM station anyway. You know, I'd sort of, you know, if I jumped ship in, you know, and created my own, it wasn't meant to be. I didn't want it like that, but unfortunately, I had to stick to me. I had to stick true to myself, and it makes you sometimes. It forces you to do things that you perhaps didn't think of doing, you know, which then brought me back to the 2012 promise, and I thought, oh well, it took me a bit of time, but I've got there in the end, you know. So maybe I needed the more experiences, maybe I needed to go through a bit more pain, I don't know, but you know, which is what I ended up doing in the end. And you again expect transformations, you know. We have to constantly look at ourselves. And I think that's perfect what you say there. It's alchemy. So when we receive an event, or we sort of emote to a certain thing in our lives, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but there's an emotion there. You're connecting quite deep in the psyche with that. And so that can end up being some sort of trigger. But the idea is not to, you know, if you can help it, emote, and if you do, is to get it out the system, change the energy, change it from being this negative thing to this wonderful positive thing. You know, if it means going out and giving a guy 20 quid on the street, then do it. You know, and it doesn't matter what he's spending it on. It's his world. It's not our business. You know, his decisions aren't our business. That if we can help, we can help. If he wants to be helped, you know, or she, and that's their journey, and it's all about what our journeys are and respecting everybody's journey. And I think that's key to peace, and unfortunately it comes from, a lot of trauma children that have grown up and not really cleared whatever they needed to clear. And that's all that is, really, if you go down to the very basics of it. And they're a bit rough and ready on the basics, but that's what I see, that's what I see. And, it's almost like it's there's a system that creates trauma children. And the idea is not to buy into that system at all, and to build your journey, whatever it is, whatever's going on there, who cares? As long as what you do does no harm. And I think the key thing is do no harm, and if you can create more energy, great, in the right direction. Those frogs. Great. I love it.
For a little while. Hold it down.
At this end, they sound like sea lions.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking for a ball to chuck at them, so I thought they need some fish.
Hey, I came across this on your website today. What's this unit? What does this do?
Oh, Mellotron. Oh, right. It's an old keyboard, isn't it? That's probably come. So, where did you pick that up? Is that Facebook or on the station?
That's on your. That's on your Facebook site. It's in your.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Mellotron. I don't know. I stick up random things to do with music, and the Mellotron was used in the late '60s or early '70s, and many people picked up on the idea to use it. I think I'll tell you, worked it really well, sort of mid '70s. It was David Bowie on a couple of tracks of his. I think it was Sweet Candidate or something like that, on the Diamond Dogs thing. At the very beginning, when he's introduced. Oh, and on Diamond Dogs itself at the very beginning. So it's just an unusual instrument. Yeah.
Is it the forerunner for a keyboard? Is it?
Yeah, it was, and they used it in the '60s a lot, towards the end of the '60s. So it became this idea of, if you think about it, that's electronic. So with the electric guitar, suddenly we're getting electric. I know the Hammond organ was, you could say, was there as well. So the Hammond organ and this Mellotron, you could do all sorts of things on the left there. I think you could change the pitch or whatever. I think.
Yeah.
And so that to me was like the beginnings of electronic music in many ways that produces dance music today. So even though it's all done on software these days, it's just I don't know. It's these roots, isn't it? It's to me, it's communication that comes from the. Yeah, even the frogs are communicating.
Yeah,
which is fantastic, isn't it? Yeah.
You have to measure their frequency.
They're at Jeff's end, aren't they? So they're trying to clear his spirits.
I got my orchestra.
Okay. Yeah, so
what's that frog song in the background? Do.
Oh yeah, that was Paul McCartney, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's great. Happy days. Yeah, so that's that. I think that's that Mellotron thing. Yeah, you can. I mean, Glastonbury is an amazing place. I don't know what draws people here. It's very difficult to put your finger on it, really. I think it's a place of autonomy, energetically, or you think it is. And it's had a real checkered history, especially with the Abbey, which I find, when it was in full swing back in the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th centuries, and it was really something. This Abbey, it was an extraordinary length. I think it was like the second biggest or third biggest in Europe at one stage in the whole of Europe, and it stemmed from very, very humble beginnings, from the first onsets of Christianity, apparently. With Joseph of Arimathea sort of stepping into the scene in sort of 76 AD or 67 AD, depending on which book you read. round about there. And this abbey has got an extraordinary history, and it's sort of the people got connected with that was St David and St Patrick, and through its own journey till eventually, and they're trying to get a pardon for Richard Whiting, who was the last abbot. I think Lord Mayor John Cousins is trying to get a pardon for Richard Whiting, who was the last abbot there, and because of the dissolution of all the churches and Henry VIII starting his new religion, the Church of England, etc., because he wanted the money. It was going abroad.
He wanted to get divorced, and the Catholic Church wouldn't divorce him.
Yeah, well, that's not really. It's there, but it's not really the thing behind it. He'd done an inventory on all the churches and found out how much money that was going to the Vatican. He thought, I think I'm going to put a stop to that, So, but he did it his way, quite robust way of doing things. But that's the way he did it. And unfortunately, Richard Whiting was the last abbot who took up onto the tour and was hung, drawn, and quartered. And a ghastly ending to anybody's life. Terrible stuff.
Where have they got his? Because when they've forgotten the areas that his head was put somewhere, and
I think his head went on the gate outside, and his bits and pieces went to 3 or 4 different towns nearby. I think Ilchester was one. I can't remember the others now.
No, I can't remember.
But yeah, and that was just. I think that was to shove out the fear and say, "Don't mess with the king." Because he got done for some trivial thing, because he kept his books meticulously well, so they couldn't do him really for anything. So they found an old letter where he was trying to do something about that divorce and just asking the Vatican what their stance was on it, and the Vatican saying no, and so the king took that as treason, even though it wasn't Richard Whiting that said no. It was actually, he was standing up for his king. But because the answer came back no, they decided to say that was enough. So that's why I'm trying to get the pardon, really. I mean, I've been very basic with the whole story there, but John Cousins did 3 amazing books about Richard Whiting, full of extraordinary detail, and my brain just can't take it all in.
Not with the progress going on.
So it's got a really good history, and considering how big that church was, and there was only about 150 people that used to live in the area, it's just mad. It's mad. So it shows that energetically, in a conscious state or in an unconscious state, from the power of prayer or whatever it is, that grew. Even with the amount of people, the amount of tribes that wanted to take over the UK, from the French to the Danish and everything else, that place grew all the time. So, it's quite interesting where the thought processes have come from, and to allow that to manifest, to be built, and then to carry that energy on. And a lot of pilgrims come to Glastonbury, and they find out their own journeys when they come here. So they go on their own extraordinary, world. That was my lovely partner in the background.
What do you know about the underground tunnels? I was trying to get Richard.
What was that bit? I missed that.
Shut up a minute. The underground tunnels.
Oh, the underground tunnels. Well, Jeff, funny enough, you should say that. Do you know what? Look at that. So that says Glastonbury Underground. So the book's by Jeff Stray, who's been a guest. He's an extraordinary guy. You should get him on, actually. He's a bus driver who writes some extraordinary books with some great stuff and research. And so he's done all the tunnels here. I haven't had a chance to look right the way through it properly yet, but it goes into all the underground tunnels that are in Glastonbury. I think the main one was used from Glastonbury Abbey to the pub. Yeah, because they used to, and monks being monks, like their ale, and they used to brew it on site and take it across to the pub. So I think they just used to take the barrels underneath the ground that way, stay quite a long time, and then get back and try and
come back on the barrel.
and wobble into prayer.
Yeah.
So so that looks like
That's an old one, isn't it?
yeah, it looks like a sort of Polden Jenkins type thing. I don't know. That's the Glass Isle, the sacred springs. So we've got all these wonderful springs that represent the cruets of Christ. Is meant to have been sort of brought across after the crucifixion by Joseph of Arimathea, and those got washed, and I don't know what they were done with afterwards. Maybe buried. I don't know. But it's all part of the wonderful story of Glastonbury, really. And I don't know whether these things how true they are, but you just see things happen historically that look like evidence, So I'd say, well, okay, it's evident that we had a huge, church built from humble beginnings. Of course, the Holy Thorn that came across from Joseph of Arimathea, and planted his stick, and that grew. And unfortunately, it had been vandalised a few times, and then and applications for housing estates to be put in, and all sorts of things. So, that's been all sorts of things. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. So it just shows there are, to me, there's a duality of life and energy-wise, and it depends which field you want to graze in. You can either be nurtured, and nourish in one field, or not in the other. That's about the best way of putting it, I think, without getting drawn into anything at the moment. So, yeah.
So let's talk about, this is Wherry Hill, isn't it? And this is the Hawthorn tree.
This is Wherry Hill, yeah, and the thorn. So apparently the Phoenicians had made that journey. Initially to create some sort of trading route to south of France, and I'm not sure then whether too much trade was going on with England at that time, but eventually there was a pathway. They went from the south of France to north of France, and I think they hired boats from there and came round the English Channel through Cornwall, to trade with tin, to get tin and lead and all sorts of things, whatever they could get, really, that used to be mined in those days, and traded. So you'd have like Lallis Luli, and the colours of dyes of cloths, purple, would come in by then, blue, and those sorts of things. And I think that trade went on for a little while. I don't know why it stopped, but maybe we got invaded by that time again. It was a great place to come to. I think they like the apples. The Isle of Apples is oh wow, what's this fruit? Crunch. Yeah. Oh yeah, nice. We'll have some of those. So, and then suddenly, oh, hang on, I found some bad apples on the floor. What can we do with it? Oh, we can alchemize that into cider. So they're fascinating stories, and they stick with us in the conscious history.
What about Dion Fortune? Because she was in Glastonbury, wasn't she?
Yeah, I think she wrote a couple of books from here as well, and she's buried here in the graveyard. People do come along to Dion and pay her a visit and respects. And I suppose because she's into theologist, really, in many ways. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think, didn't they have an exhibition for her in Glastonbury a while back?
Oh, I might have missed that. Yeah. I think they did, but I can't recall it. I was probably on some other projects at the time.
I know Dave, he used to do a lot of stuff with her, and sell her books and what have you, and knew about her history.
Well, you mean Dave Brakeman or? No. Because there's a lot of Daves in
There is.
Glastonbury, you know that, don't you? And where there's a Dave, there's a Steve. So there must be a lot of Steves, but I only know one.
What's the history on the White Springs? Because that's a funny little place, and it's only open so many hours, and there's so many people tell me they're guardians of the White Spring that I don't really know who's who anymore.
Yeah, I'm not too sure with those deities there. I mean, it means something. I mean, they represent all sorts of things. I think because it's the White Spring, which is just outside the Chalice Well. It was built up there. I think Robert Plant and Jimmy Page lived quite close by at one stage there. There's a lot of energy that goes into water, of course, and with those springs, that changed, and it was all built up around the First World War, and so they made it into a sort of shrine, really, for different deities. So Bridget is the eternal flame. So with that, they created a corner where they light the candle, and of course, when the candles start to go out, they light another candle, so the flame stays eternal. And there's volunteers that keep that flame going, and the whole idea is to keep the well running all the time. But it's changed a lot since then, so it's a bit of an old picture. I think somebody's just recently bought it and done a few things with it. It's done a few things with it. Lots of people hang out there, and of course it's a place to get your water from from the springs. And they've built a nice pipe on the outside so you can fill lots of people queue up to fill their buckets and canisters and things of water. It has been dry I think it's been dry a couple of times in the past, historically, but not too many times. It doesn't.
I know there's little ceremonies that go on in there. I've seen in the past. I haven't actually been involved, but I've seen. Doing
strangely, I haven't been for a. I should go really again, but I haven't been for a year or two. And sometimes it's a strange energy. Sometimes I feel really quite dizzy by the time I come out, and feel, was that good? And other times I feel I sort of question it, and I think, that felt really weird. Why did that feel so weird? I felt like it was a little bit on the sort of dark side, but it's. Everybody gets something out of that, and I think it's with all the people that go in it in a small space, it's quite dense, and you've got the sort of the green man symbols at the end of the deity of Gwynedd Nup, so the king of the fairies, so to speak, who I find a bit mischievous. So you've got, it's meant to be a thin veil there for you to, and that's, I'm not quite sure. I think that's Chalicewell, is it? And the Abbey there.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I was looking at the wrong screen.
That's right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Actually, I've gone in there with my mate, and we started toning it there. It took a while, but we found the sweet spot in there, and the tone was just amazing.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, so there is that. I mean, some people go in there doing these wonderful voices and creating these this vibration through song and chant. And when you get the right place, it does sound incredible. And you get the sound of the water in the background rushing into the background. It sounds absolutely. No, I'll go with that. Yeah, thanks for that reminder. Thanks for that reminder.
The other sweet spot is actually in the Abbey kitchen.
Yeah, the Abbey kitchen. Yeah, because of its dome kind of features, an octagon. So that feature. I don't know. I think it was too high to do the old White House type thing where you could whisper in one corner and you'd be able to hear the conversation in the other. I don't think it quite works like that there, because the corners were corners rather than it being all round, so that couldn't quite travel the best way, the right way. But it was very well invented, created and built, and that stands today, doesn't it? In its entirety. And that's a wonderful place to go and just capture that moment back in the medieval days of how they were cooking or how they would cook, where all that food would go to when dignitaries used to come down, or the king, or anything, and banquet them and lavish them in order to get more money. Nothing's changed really, has it? So that energy is still there. Love. It's a great place to contemplate, and there's a wonderful lake there full of fish, and the trees are amazing. You can just see it just brims with life to the fullest. So you know that there's a special energy about the place. And you can feel that. There's no doubt about that. And it was the first place to have a perpetual choir. So one set of monks would go in and sing for 4 hours or whatever. And then they would, as they left, the next set of monks would come in singing the same song and then replace them. And that would be right on the ley lines where they buried. Of course, we go on to King Arthur then, where they, they put the grave of King Arthur. And that was doused and by many people, and that's where the Mary and the Michael lines actually cross. So I find that interesting. Right at the high altar is where that crosses. So, did they douse in those days, or did they use the power of the pineal gland? I don't know. It's fascinating. I find it fascinating how these things are built, and where they're built, geographically. Yeah.
I know I went to the Positive Living Group with Sammy and Dave when I was in Glastonbury, about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I went round to the front of the Abbey house, the big house. But I've never been round the front. I've always gone in the back, but going round the front. And then, of course, the sun was going down and it goes right down through it was just like magic. Just amazing. It's just really spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And that house was built much, much later, but obviously with that in mind. With that in mind. So, that's in the perfect place, really. That's a wonderful place, the Abbey House. And of course, PLG do their stuff there. I'll give them a bit of a plug.
That's right. Dave was doing his ceremony there, and it was lovely. So
it's really, really good stuff. And of course, I think me and Dave are going to end up doing something for Glastonbury Radio 432. Give them a plug.
Yeah.
We're going to try and do something which will be hopefully quite funny. Sort of send up ourselves in different characters. Quite fun, really, just to introduce songs in a different way.
I mean, when I lived in Glastonbury, like before I went to Australia, this was 2007. I used to go out in the morning to post a letter, say 10 o'clock. When I didn't come back to the evening, I'd do a stint in the Chalice Well, because I was a volunteer. And then you'd meet somebody for coffee, and then there'd be a talk on orbs going on down the road, and there'd be some dancing going down there, and belly dancing going on up there, and chanting. There's just so much to do every day. Different, because you've got the belly dancing, you've got the kirtan dancing, different talks, you've got healing groups. There's just so much going on.
There's a free magazine called The Oracle, and in The Oracle, it gives you everything that you need to. It's such a small town. It has so many things going on all at once. It's just sport for choice. It depends where you're going with. If you want to be entertained with music, there's enough pubs and venues to be going on with that. If you want to do a gong bath, usually somebody comes in and does that. It's somewhere. You've got the Goddess House, of course, and you've got there's so much. Yeah, I know they sort of talk about the crystals, but there is a lot of things that go on, and like I say, there's this pilgrimage, this modern day pilgrimage for people to come to Glastonbury. And does that stem? I just wonder whether it stems from the DNA all the way back to the days of Joseph of Arimathea and the energy that was building that sort of church or temple, if you like. And maybe that's what we're all meant to be doing, is building our temples, individually. I don't know. I fail a lot of times, and I try to, it can be difficult, and so you just have to remember that when you're riding that bike, you do fall off occasionally.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But you just got to brush yourself down and get back on it straight away, and that's what you do.
Sorry, go on.
Go on. No, go on.
I was going to say, and if we all do our own homework on ourselves and clear and work through our emotions and our traumas and, our aches and pains are all blocked energies and things like that, the more we're in tune with ourselves, we can help others to do the same, but we're all coming from a place of peace and not like, because everybody's a mirror. So if somebody's, bringing up your anger, well, you may not thank them at the time, but they're giving you a gift to deal with deep traumatized stuff that just needs releasing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another way, the sort of way I looked at it was when you're a child, whatever your traumas you're dragging into the adult world with you, and they could be the most minor of things. Somebody didn't read your poetry. An English teacher didn't read your poetry out in the class after promising that, and it mortified you, so you never wrote any poetry after that, and you might have only been 8 years of age, or it could be something even more deeper and more serious. It could be anything is a childhood trauma, because you're navigating the world for the first time and you're having first time experiences for quite a long time. I think what you have to do is go back to the child, like go in the classroom and realize the teacher was busy, she was breaking up with her boyfriend, all sorts. You can create any scenario you like, and you go in with forgiveness and realize that it wasn't your fault or anything like that. You just say, do you know what, you had your world in that adult world, I didn't understand it, but I forgive you and I love you and thank you, and the Honopono thing, and then you can move on. Yeah. And you just address it and alchemize it into the modern day world, into your world. And then you can say, okay, for that, I'm going to reward that teacher. Even if you can't remember the memories of anything, you say, I'll reward that. And you'll go and alchemize and do, something, really positive out of the blue, a random act of kindness in one form or another, which is something really good to do. Not to satisfy you at that level, it's to sort of put that energy out there that was created back then. Do you know what I mean? That may have been stuck. So you're just releasing that out, just saying, everything's amazing. And look, I've just put a smile on that person's face. I mean, and that becomes quite infectious in itself.
And listen, you've made somebody wrong, haven't you? You've got told off and you've taken offence to that, but you've made it wrong, haven't you?
Yeah, and especially you become a victim in one form or another. You might have been told off for something you didn't do, and that can stay with you. Yeah, and that's one of the classics, really. And then you feel guilty because something happens in your adult life, and you go, "Well, that wasn't me." You pipe up straight away. Well, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. So it's about clearing that and not worrying about the effects of those things as an adult, and don't allow those things energetically to form in your psyche. You don't need it. It's about who do you want in your world. So bring those people in. You just do that by you. You do that. By what you emit energetically, by who you want to go and talk to and connect with. And some people might find it almost impossible to do, but there are. You see the old classic photograph of a like a small plant in the concrete, it's just coming out from nowhere, and you just go, well, there you go, that's what we all are. Do you know what I mean? That's what we all, that symbolizes us. It doesn't matter what's forced in its place, there's always a shoot of nature coming through energetically, life. So be that life, be what you can be. We do get, like you said yourself, you felt tired and wiped out, yesterday or the day before, and the last few days. Energetically, that happens around us all the time. So that's time to take stock, really, and just charge the batteries up and say, do you know what? I'll give myself permission to rest today. That's right. And I'll give myself to have that chocolate. I'll give myself to watch that film and put my feet up. I'll give myself permission to have that glass of wine or beer or whatever, just for that moment, and then after that you go, God, I really enjoyed that. it's not a guilty pleasure. There's no guilt in it. I love that. That was great. And then you can, your mind starts to release nice. Now, what can I do tomorrow? Or next week? Oh, I know what I can do. And you start to release that energy again. That's creative. The creative forces. So I think if we all do it individually as best way we can, if we can do that, if we're in that world, but collectively, how powerful is that? How powerful is that? And so it's keeping focused on your world, and what you bring into it, and your reality. And I've highlighted so many things in the past, and I've realised actually, do I need to? Because eventually people find out,
Exactly.
So, and it's the old is it the monkey, what is it, the 100th monkey syndrome, or whatever it is, the 100th monkey effect. So you only have to think it, and make awareness of certain things, and that sort of breaks magic spells. And we all seem to be hypnotized a few times, and we all can be rabbits in the headlights. It's just diving out the way of it. So that's what that to me is about. You can't plan tomorrow in many ways. We want to, and we can aim for things, so we've got a spot to go to. But beware, you are a lighthouse, so be careful what you're flashing out there, if you know what I mean. Before I get arrested. So I don't know, you just got to bring humour into your life if you can. And humour and music are two vibrations that carry the special frequencies, I believe. So I work off that, and I love, that's why I like music so much. And you can hear the frogs are singing, so they're bringing a lot of music in the background. That's nature, happy, chanting. Although that were telling me to get off.
It's their show today, I reckon. My gosh.
So I can't read that. How Confucius say, I can't read. I'll have to get the glasses.
If one should desire to know whether a kingdom is well governed, if its morals are good or bad, the quality of its music will furnish the answer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Totally run with that. And that's because I feel that when you see that, you can tell. If you look at morals, and how things are governed in that sense in the world, you can say, well, those that persecuted Anne Frank were in a legal framework, and those that hid her were in a illegal framework. In that sense, in that world of government, in governed. Do you know what I mean? So, that to me is one thing in that. So you've got to be careful with that framework. But I also think when music is coming through all the time, where that sits, so you can see the morals, you can see the good, and through all that vibration, and through that understanding, that duality, that you should know where the world sits today, really. And therefore you just don't have to attach yourself to that, and you just carry on and do what you do in that, and keep it as high vibration as you can, and play as much music as you can. That's why I like dance music. It sort of gives a left and right foot stomping, whatever it is, as long as it's foot stomping, I quite like that. It gives out that energy. You're expressing yourself, pushing. That's why they dance like that. It's like saying, have some of that. I'm happy. I love you all. Have that. So they like doing that. So how long have you been going? I just thought I'd ask you a question, because I do radio. So we've got my raft in the background there. I didn't realise. There they are.
That's all right. It's live.
She's all right. I think she's enjoying it. I haven't had anything thrown at me yet, so that's quite good.
When the frogs go quiet, it's like, whew.
I know. That's quite interesting, though, why the frogs are there. I like that, because to me, that's actually nature, and it's expressing. They're expressing their voice, and that, and we should be able to express our voices anytime we like, without recourse, really, as long as you're doing no harm. That to me makes sense. I mean, you want to build bridges, not brick up walls, do we? We need, make it as open as possible. As long as you're protecting yourself, you're not going to fall down and somebody's going to push you over or something. You just got to get up again. So even with the radio, doing my radio stuff, I've got, I've got a guy over in America who's he's part Apache, and he does talks with elders. So he does a show where he does talks with elders and talks about higher consciousness stuff. And it can form in it. Funny enough, it comes in the form of sound and vibration. And we got now healing beds that vibrate. And with sound we can heal with. So there are many areas. With water you can put shungite in that absorbs ions and things. And so there are many things around us that weren't in our conscious field probably 10 years ago. That are there now, and this is to me the new world. This is what we dream of building. So the radio station of Glastonbury Radio 432 is trying to be of a higher consciousness. Although I picked some old 60s and 70s songs that don't sound so much like that in there in the playlists. But there are a lot of mantras. So if you go on, if somebody's, I think probably in Australia, you probably get the nighttime shows in the daytime. So in the daytime, you get mantras, so you'll get some mantras and really chilled out music.
Nice.
And then at night time, you get the talk shows and the normal daytime play music that I would have here, which includes lots of the local artists,
Do
and
you
that's.
do any advertising on your? I must admit, I haven't listened, but I will start listening. But do you get any? Do you have advertising on your station, or are you all music?
Well, I was a bit naughty. What I've done is on one of the pages, there's an advert page. I put a few things up there, and they don't even know they're up there because that's the type of thing I wanted. So there'd be shungite and water and healing things and stuff. And I just thought, well, do you know what? Or conscious clothing or whatever, or hemp, And I thought, well, that's the sort of thing that needs to be out there, as a higher vibrational stuff. So I just threw them up there. I don't suppose they're going to say, take that down.
No.
So, and then there's another page I did with YouTube stuff, which I'm changing now because that was all about awareness of just things from, spectrum of stuff, really, from the Book of Yogi by Nanda, and some local artists and other things as well. So that became a bit of a thing. But I've got to update that, to be honest. And then there is the Glastonbury artist page where all the artists are there. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And they, give out amazing performances. They write all their own songs. They've got albums out there and CDs. So that to me is what I wanted to do, is support them, because I think the whole construct of a song is quite extraordinary. It's got to come from it's coming from this creative part of the psyche for somebody that's got this talent, and they've got to not only work out all the chords that they've had to spend about 5,000 hours learning, and to get right and perfect, but they're then creating this tone of music that goes out from their world and create this sort of structure of this wonderful thing that they do, and you just go, wow, where did that come from? That's amazing. And so I love that. I think we've probably all got it in us, but we've all got our thing, so I think probably radio's my thing, and just hold the space for that. And I think what I like to see, the more people succeed, the happier I feel.
Of course.
And it just gives you great pleasure when you see somebody doing really well and you think, wow, well done you. That's
exactly.
fantastic. Well done, you. And there's room for everybody. You know, everybody can do their thing. It's whatever. It's like you said, Jeff. It's wherever your passion is to try and run with that. And sometimes we get a bit fearful. You know, you think, oh, I might fail, or you know, so people fear failure more than anything else. Well, you know, and what is failure? I think Einstein, you know, it took him about 1 million goes to get his theory of relativity, and he suddenly became overnight sort of success after about 30 years, you know. So
keep on keeping on.
Yeah, just keep on keeping on. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Pick yourself
and
dust
yourself down, you know, and just go, oh well, you know. And if you're feeling embarrassed about it all, then that's only ego. You know, it's only ego. It's nothing else.
Exactly.
You know, so you have to get out of that shell. Yeah, and just
Talking of sound, have you seen the movie August Rush?
No, I haven't. No.
I'll tell you what. It is my dear friend Beth in Australia. She said to me, "Have you seen August Rush?" I said no. She said, "Right, sit down." So she put it on. It's absolutely beautiful. I watched it 5 times before I stopped bubbling at the end. But it's we tried to watch it the other day, and I think you have to buy it on eBay. I can't get it anywhere to watch it again. But honestly, it's all about sound. And this young guy, I'm not going to tell you anymore, I highly recommend you get the movie August Rush. It's probably 10 years or more old. But it's a beautiful story. It really is. So,
August Rush. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to write that one down. That's a movie to watch. August Rush. Okay, we'll do that. We like to watch a few movies, so yeah.
And it's all about sound. It really is. But in a lovely way.
Well, I think everybody. I think it should be mandatory. They do gong baths at school. You know, start there. You know, and then once you start there, and you can imagine children having gong baths. You know, as part of their education.
Yeah.
What would that do? You know?
Can you imagine, like, when they come into school and they take them in a little meditation, because children are coming in from school from all sorts of situations and dramas that we don't even know about, and they all come in and they're all, and then you know, if you get them to meditate and you bring them back into their bodies, you ground them in, and then you give them a better start to the day. But they don't teach you things like that. Why would they want you or at peace rather than
that then becomes, to me, that's the convergence. You know, you look at that's the convergence of the spiritual world, you know, spirituality. You could say that the difference between dark and light in many ways. You know, for control, do they want to keep you small and individual in the sense of, but we want you collective and small, you know, and we want you all uniform together, thinking the same thing. Or do you jump out of that box and find out who you are and become, you know, your own power, or empowered to try and do what you can, how you see fit, you know, in your world and what you want to bring into it. You know, sometimes it takes 50 years to learn that, you know, or more. But if they're taught it in schools, you know, straight away, what sort of wonderful boys and girls grow up to be fantastic men and women, you know, as a collective. That'd be amazing. And yet at the same time, what I think psychologically, what probably governments and things don't realize is that works in their favor, you know, far better than anything else, you know, far better than anything else, you know. And I think that whole world has to change its own, you know, it's got to look itself, it's got to look within itself. And yeah, I don't know whether they're capable of doing that. I don't know.
Steiner schools.
Well, the Steiner, again, you know, he's thought outside the box and created, you know, some wonderful theories of bringing children through. And if you look at Steiner children, there's this air of confidence about them, and have this wonderful go and get and do in a way that brings everybody with them. You know, it's just, and it just empowers everybody around them. So there's an inspiration there. You know, yeah, totally. Yeah, so I'm all for a kind of, not one size fits all, but a way that children can learn without being stressed out all the time. You know, you don't have to have all that stuff piled onto them. You know, who cares if you can, if you don't use the mathematics in that sense, why don't you just set up a shop, and learn how to use maths? Right, I'm going to buy 3 pairs before we nick them, because they do it that occasionally, don't they? So it's to teach them the morale side of it rather than go down that side of it, or even both, and what the consequences are. I think there's an old Dane law where they used to have 10 people together. And so they'd be one person designate 9 people, and they would look after each other to make sure they kept out of trouble. And if one of them fell off, the ways and was a bit naughty and went scrumping and stole a few apples or whatever, they'd be lined up by the other 9, Trust me, they didn't do it again, And I think, but another way of doing it, there's some African tribes, like an Ubuntu type way, where if one of the children, I forget where it was, but if the children fell a bit behind in one form or did something that wasn't quite right in the moral consensus of the village, they would be put into the middle of a square, and all the village would come out and say how wonderful that boy or girl was, and all their beautiful attributes and what they're all about, and lift them, and then go and make them laugh and everything, and then they were brought back in, and they didn't do that again, wherever it was, because they felt the love coming in from the whole village. To me, I thought that was extraordinary. So it is there, and I think those sorts of methods can only be trickled in, because that's too much of a sharp shot for the Western world. So those are things you just trickle into life. If you think about the way things are fed into us, it's sort of drip feed stuff, isn't it? So you drip feed. To me, I like to drip feed back an alchemic energy, so that comes very subtly into the structures of everything around you. And then that way people haven't even noticed half the time, but it's gone in. It's gone in, because it does. Because that's the way that works. Life is extraordinary, and yes, we have all sorts of challenges and all our individual journeys, but that's for you. That's the love of working it out. That's your jigsaw puzzle, and then when you see the big picture and you work it all out and you put that last puzzle in place, you go, wow, look at that. It's fantastic. So I think that's what we all have to do. And we do have challenges, around us all the time. But you just do your thing, your world. You create your people in that world and what you want to do, And the love of humanity and the love of that builds everything you want to build. And of course, that 100th monkey effect, that skips and jumps from one side of the world to the other. It's there. You have an idea, it flashes up, and somebody somewhere flashes up the same idea, but you think you've invented it. So to me, that's the power of the nature's frequencies and nature's matrix. So it's to keep into nature's matrix and be the synergy with that. Go by the sun and the moon and everything, because they're a cyclic sort of nature, really. And why would you want to be drawn away from nature? It's the beauty of who we are. You listen to those frogs; they're amazing. I think Jeff's got to go out with a violin and a few other things, and they can pick up those instruments and create a nice song.
Where I am now in Corfmullen, the starlings come over, hundreds and hundreds every night, and I just come out, just before the sun goes down. I mean, I know it happens in Somerset, but actually, to see the murmuration here, every night is like amazing to me. I just stand out in wow. I thought it was the welcoming committee when I first arrived. Oh, thank you.
We've just down the road from us, we've got a wildlife sanctuary. We've got West Hay, and you see all those murmurations coming in. It's just a bird sanctuary, really. It's for them and we're allowed to eavesdrop in one way or another just by looking in with all these little huts you can go in and have a look, from cormorants and all the rest. And it's just amazing to see. You know, it's a very peaceful place. And there's a track down there called the Sweet Track. And that's, you know, reputedly to be between 5,000 and 10,000 years old. So it's sort of, you know, almost Neolithic, really, in many ways. Oh, yeah, more than that, you know. So, and so there must have been some sort of way, you know, there was a way through. So people were, you know, must have been migrating in those days to go from one place to another. Yeah. So we're all one big happy family. Yeah. To me, who cares what your background is or what you do, you know, in that sense, as long as you're doing no harm. And, you know, we can all join in together in a sort of matrimonious energy. You know, so, hey, how you doing? Yeah, great. How are you? Yeah, fantastic.
There's supporting each other, isn't it? You know, when you're on a high, somebody's on a low, and you know, like yesterday, I was just absolutely wiped out, and I know I've made massive changes and moving down, and plus it's the 11:11, and energies are high, and it's like, you know, I just had to go to bed, and I just felt like a drug yesterday, and I spoke to a couple of friends, and I said, oh my God, I said, it's absolutely wiped out. You know, if you've got a good network of friends, you can go, blah, 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 and then we'll move on, eh?
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of it, really. And when you say about, you know, moving into a place for the first time and all the rest of it, it's like when you come to Glastonbury, it sometimes doesn't quite go right for whatever the reasons are. And that's because that's still things that you need to sort out in yourself. You know, so energetically, it might be a thread of DNA you've brought in. So you have to try and sort that out. You know, you sometimes don't get it, you know, and then you go, oh yeah, of course, duh, yeah, and then you go through those moments. Like, so the hardest person you ever have to meet is yourself. Yeah, that is the hardest person you ever have to meet. Is always yourself. You know, and when you've done that and you've gone through your whole thing, you can forgive, forget. Well, maybe not forget. You can use it as a navigating tool, but you know, certainly you have to be in a place of forgiveness, constantly in gratitude, constant forgiveness. That's what you have to try and do. Well, you know, it's funny. I don't get any anger these days. You know, I'm not.
No, yeah, you don't react like you used to, do you?
I laugh a lot, but sometimes it's like a nervous laugh.
Yeah.
But other times it's, yeah, you know, and it's just that. So, you know, I feel really privileged and been lucky enough to do a guide, you know, to become a tour guide and get to know Glastonbury well enough historically and energetically with all the ley lines and, you know, all that. Which was absolutely fantastic. And you get to know your place and you get to know yourself a bit better within that place, you know, and to do the stuff for GFM was fantastic as well. You know, I really enjoyed that. And I have to say, before that, I was in hospital radio in Chelmsford. So I have to give them a shout out, and particularly Phil Meacham, who he used to work for BBC Radio Essex. He was the man for me. He just taught me everything I needed to know and gave me the confidence to go ahead. Yeah, I wanted to do it anyway, but he was the man. Yeah. So I've got to thank him. Yeah, thank you. And yeah.
On that note, the sound now. It's just
so look. Yes, just pause to say Glastonbury Radio 432. Have a go. .com. It's an internet radio station, and it's. I think it's quite nice.
Yeah, no, that's. I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time out to talk with us, and sharing all your stories, your passion, and it's been lovely.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I have no idea what I've said. I hope it hasn't got into me trouble. I won't even remember, but you know, so because by the time this goes out or whatever, you know, even if it's somewhere else, I'd have completely forgotten. You know, I don't remember much about yesterday. It's always about now, isn't it? So I've got to thank Jeff for. I'm sorry, I've got to apologise to Jeff for not giving him enough chance to put loads of pictures up. I think there was at the beginning, but you know, it sort of petered out, didn't it, for you? Yeah. So thanks to Jeff and for getting me online, and to yourself, Andrena, for and having all this together. Australia FM 88. Maybe, when your shows go out, I can put them up and put them on. I mean, you've sent me some stuff, so I'm gonna have a look at that, and I'll just put them up, and they'll go out on a regular time, and as a repeat thing, and maybe have this wonderful synergetic connection, that keeps us from one side of the world to the other. And I'd like that background that Jeff's got. That would be nice. So yeah.
Let us know when you're going to
thank
do
you.
that. We can put it up. This time this is going out. So happy to share any of that. So not a problem.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. And then I've got these shows that come from America, and they put theirs on there. And I've got a local presenter, Michael Law, who's he's a wonderful chap as well, and he looks after the open mic sessions on a Saturday night sometimes. He's an engineer for that, and he's a musician himself, keyboard player. He's on his 53rd show, or he's on his 54th one next week. So he's just past the year mark, and I'm thinking, have I been up that long? I haven't even launched it yet, so it's like, oh my goodness me, hasn't time flown? So yeah, so I thank him as well.
Good luck with the launch. So look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, and anybody that wants to do a show for Glastonbury Radio 432 and try their hand at radio presenting, they can do. Yeah. I probably didn't give you a link, did I? I should have put a link up for you. But I'll put it on afterwards.
Jeff's been putting up all the links while we've been talking.
Great. That's the Gmail link. But if you put Glastonbury Radio 432, that's the Gmail link to send shows to, and then GlastonburyRadio432.com is the place to go. To go and have a look at it. And if you feel like you want to do something, it's there. It's a tapestry of of all things. It's just there for anybody to have a go. Hopefully they'll do a good job.
A fabulous job. Thank you.
Yeah. And a big thank you all around. So Jeff, thanks for the connection there, and Andrena all the way over. That's wonderful, and I hope that you do many shows in the future. I'm sure you will.
Very much. Right.
Okay, so next Thursday we've got an Aussie girl. We couldn't be mildly surprised. In fact, she just lives in the next suburb. 24 years on ABC Radio in Victoria. She ran an hourly show on medical health and health issues, and she's branched out some years ago to be a stand-up comedian. So she takes all health matters and turns it into comedy. And I've learned how to just listen, because you have to be so quick to be able to respond to her wit. Yeah. So that's her next week. Anyway, been a pleasure.
And
stay with
thank
us.
you.
Yep. Stay with us.
Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Yeah.